Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. With the voice, Milt Thompson. Delivering the best of sports programming. Interviews with top celebrities. And the answer to the question, where are they now? And now, Milt Thompson, Playing for Keeps.
Good evening and welcome to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson. And we're here every Friday night on WHMB Channel 40 at 9 p.m. So I know you're continuing to tune in because I'm hearing from you. You love our great interviews that we're having, like the fireballer Drew Storen or the vernacular and Clark Kellogg. And when you're hearing about, we're going to the Super Bowl, Marlon Jackson. And when we hear about the indefatigable Kathy Jordan. And when we hear about all of these greats that we have, we just had the executive on also recently, the great Brian Richardson Jr., who had a little tenure at my alma mater. And we're going to have another show that kind of features somebody from my alma mater, though this guy is big time, let me tell you. I've been coveting the opportunity for this interview, and there's not very many that I covet interviews from, but this guy here is unbelievable. And he'll find out, but everyone gets a nickname on here. But you know what his is going to be? It's going to be called Steel Toe. I mean, he'll know what that's all about. I'm not sure anybody else will know what that's about, Fred, but they're going to find out about Mr. Steel Toe, who happens to be one of the most acclaimed authors, sports journalists in the entire country. There's no doubt about it that I'd get him on our show. Really is something very close and near and dear to me because he's a close, near, and dear friend. But more importantly, he has more stories than anybody that I know. And we're gonna focus in on maybe one or two or three or 5 or 10 of his books where he's gotten close and being connected. One of our guys here, Fred, said, "Oh, he's only done that much? He must be pretty connected." I said, "Are you kidding me? That guy's more connected than me, and that's pretty connected." Isn't that right, Kelly? That's exactly right. Well, we're going to be right back here with the Steel Toe, Fred Mitchell, in just one moment. You come right back here on Playing for Keeps.
Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube.
Welcome back to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson. Thank you for actually patronizing our great sponsors here, Jiffy Lube and Blicky Dillon Crandall and E-Spot Spas and others that are coming along, is what Kelly and Susan tell me. So when we do that, we're going to be able to talk about more sports stars and some of the most important sports figures in our business, in the country and in the world and around our globe. And we're especially grateful to do that today. And this evening we'll be talking with the Steel Toe, my great friend, journalist of the Chicago Tribune, Fred Mitchell. Fred, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Milt. I think I feel validated now being on your show.
Oh, you're validated way before my show, but if that adds anything to your validation, we can do that. Before we get too deep into your career and all the things we're going to go, anytime I give someone a nickname, everyone's wondering, why in the heck is he calling him that? Well, let's dig back into old Steel Toe now, because let me set it up for you. There is a kicking award that goes out to college athletes, college kickers in the world, and they are named after this guy, the Fred Mitchell Award. And how did he get that? Named after him. Well, when he was a college kicker at our alma mater over in Springfield, Ohio, Wittenberg University, he kicked as a kicker. And he kicked with a straightforward kick, not like these newfangled soccer-style kickers that we see every day. We call him Steel Toe because he could kick them straight through the uprights and got critical acclaim about it. Now, I set you up, Steel Toe. Tell us about that career and tell us about how it led to this Kickers Award.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like a dinosaur as far as the kickers who kick straight on with a square-toed steel toe, if you will. And that was the method that we knew about. And it was in the 1960s when I kicked at Wittenberg, and the soccer-style kickers were just starting to come on the scene in the 60s. And we were all pretty skeptical of them at the time, thinking that, oh, this is just a fad. And guys like Jan Stenerud and the Gogolak brothers and Garo Yepremian, these guys are kind of a fad from Europe. And lo and behold, they've taken over, and all the straight-on kickers are gone. But that's the way I learned to kick from the time I was 7 years old, straight on. I kicked into an empty lot beyond my house. I made my goalposts from my mother's, a couple of bamboo poles and my mother's clothesline for a crossbar, and taught myself pretty much how to do it. And it blossomed into a career and something that has stuck with me. And I was so proud and honored and humbled to be the namesake for an award that the National Football Foundation created in 2009 and decided to name after me. And we had a 35-man selection committee, and each year we evaluate not only kicking performance, but also community service of the kickers. That's a strong factor as well. So we've had some wonderful kickers and individuals, and several of them have had at least brief NFL careers already. And more importantly, they've all turned out to be just wonderful young men and contributed in many ways already in society.
Now you heard about Steel Toe, Fred Mitchell, very distinguished career. But at 8 years old, you had no idea that you were going to be kicking in college, right? As you're kicking through your mom's clotheslines. But Fred, you matriculated to a wonderful university. I mean, where only smart people go, right? Only smart people get to go to that.
That's right. Yeah, I had not heard of Wittenberg University like a lot of people who went there later, and found out about it. It happened to be a colleague of my father's, who was the personnel director of Inland Steel Company in Chicago, Indiana, who was a Wittenberg alum. And he knew of my background and interests. And at that point, Wittenberg was a mythical national champion in football and had a great academic reputation as well. And I visited there. Actually, one of the other colleges that was recruiting me was Brown University, and of the Ivy League. And I found years later a treasured letter that I had received from Fritz Pollard, trying to get me to go to Brown University. And of course, for those who don't know, Fritz Pollard was the first one of the two first African Americans to play in the NFL, the first African American coach in the NFL. Just a
first black quarterback.
Incredible human being. Yeah,
his quarterback as well.
And, right, and he was posthumously inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame about 7 or 8 years ago, I think it was.
We know you as the Steel Toe. We know you as the kicker, but the world knows you as the fine journalist for the Chicago Tribune throughout the years. Tell us about how it is you got into that business, your journalistic career that led you not only into great-time journalism in sports, but also ultimately led you into becoming a renowned author of so many great folks.
Well, thank you. And, like so many of us who've been blessed to succeed in a given field, it takes good fortune. It takes people believing in you and giving you an opportunity. So right after graduating from Wittenberg, I taught high school English at Grove City High School in suburban Columbus, Ohio, and coached football and track, and had a wonderful experience doing that for 5 years. And then after 5 years, even though I enjoyed that a great deal, I just wanted to pursue something else. And initially, I wasn't quite sure what that was going to be. So a colleague of my father's, named Bill Lowry in Chicago had a television show called Opportunity Line, where he lined people up for jobs, et cetera. And it turns out he was an African American who had played 3 sports at Kenyon College. So he was aware of the small college history in Ohio and that sort of thing. So anyway, Bill Lowry set up a series of interviews for me in Chicago with companies like Quaker Oats, Northern Trust Bank, a couple others. And I got some offers. And I came back to his office in the Loop in Chicago. And I guess I didn't look all that enthused. He said, well, what is it that you're looking for? Because these jobs are mostly, public relations and that sort of thing. So I kind of hum-hawed and said, well, I'd really like to be a sports writer, but I'm sure that's not possible. I've been sports writer of our school paper at Wittenberg, The Torch, in addition to playing football and running track. Back in high school, same thing. I was the editor of the school paper and yearbook. So I kind of had this in the back of my mind, but I just didn't think it was that realistic for me as a profession. So anyway, Bill Lowry stopped me and said, well, wait a minute. So he made a phone call to someone at the Tribune, one of the higher ups, and it just so happened that they had an opening on the copy desk of the sports department. So back in those days, the copy desk meant that you were the last person to see a story before it went to print. You wrote the headline for it, you fact checked it, you checked the grammatical errors, did all of that. So it was an important job, and it was a way to get my foot in the door. So, yeah, I'd love to do this. Great. So that's how I started out, and I was a copy editor for maybe 2 years. It seemed like a lot longer than that because I kept telling myself, hey, I can do this. I can write like these people here. Give me a chance, So my first opportunity was covering high school sports. So this would have been in the late 70s. And so I wrote stories about people like Isaiah Thomas and Doc Rivers when they were in high school and killing it. And on and on and on.
Your name dropping on me, Fred. Your name dropping on me. So I'm going to have to drop some names on you, but we're going to talk right back after these short words, and we'll continue the journey with Fred Mitchell. Steel toe.
Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube.
Welcome back to Playing for Keeps, and I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson, right here on WHMB Channel 40. We are the place for high school sports. Speaking about the steel toe, Fred Mitchell getting his cut in journalism and sports journalism with high school sports. We do sports here all the time. We have a game of the week in both football and basketball, and have the Phil Eisenberger Show talking about greats in basketball. And of course, you got to watch Playing for Keeps because we have the greatest sports show that's going on around here, and we want to thank our good friend Fred Mitchell for appearing on our show. I've been coveting an interview with him for a long, long time. He says I'm validating him. It's the other way around. He's validating me and the other great guests that we've had on this show. Fred, you were telling us about your start into journalism and got you into writing for one of the biggest publications in sports a long time. And back when I worked during the Pan American Games and worked with other journalists and Phil Jamoski and others from your great place I've gotten to work with, and having followed you on television and in writing, that step towards fame, what it is that allowed you to be able to now meet and greet all of these wonderful, great people that we all talk about?
Well, I think one secret to my longevity was my willingness to adapt to technology and all the things that help tell a story better. So that what started out in 1974 for me as simply writing for the newspaper evolved to the point where I would appear on television for interviews quite often, appear on radio quite often, and then years and years later, other platforms, social media, podcasts. And I always embraced anything that helped tell a story better. It was never resistant to that. And I think over time, if you do your job well and do your job with integrity, you will gain the trust of people that you cover. And that trust led to many opportunities for me, including, writing 12 books and that sort of thing. So I tell my students now that I teach at DePaul University, if they're one of the most underrated skills you can have in any business, actually, is good people skills. Getting along with other people is most important, and it's certainly important in journalism in terms of gaining the trust of your colleagues as well as the people that you interview. So
Steel Toe, you come from a talented family. You have other talented members of your family. One who's made some notoriety here in Central Indiana. Tell us about Steve.
Yeah, my younger brother Steve, and you'll appreciate this, Milt, as a baseball star yourself in college. Steve was Butler University Hall of Fame pitcher and outfielder. Among his many feats on the baseball diamond was a one hitter that he threw against Valparaiso University. And I've had a lot of fun over the years interviewing Lloyd McClendon, who played for Valparaiso during that era that Steve was pitching. And Steve had a no-hitter going against Valparaiso. And Lloyd McClendon hit one of these ground balls in the hole at short, and the throw to first was low and got away. Could have been called an error. Was called an infield hit. The ruined Steve's no-hitter. So I every time I see Lloyd, I tease him about that, and I just helped induct him to the Gary, Indiana Sports Hall of Fame a few weeks ago, and was able to retell that story and got some laughs.
Well, your fame, his fame led him to being a great photographer, in both for rock stars as well as some of the greatest athletes ever in the world. And you're at kind of an epicenter of a lot of professional sports teams. My Chicago White Sox, although right now I'm not sure I want to claim them, and the Cubbies is always next year, right? And you're up there with your Chicago Bears, who, you got our defensive coordinator, who people didn't really care that they went to be your head coach. But we'll see how he manages there. Obviously, the era of the Bulls and the Michael Jordan era and put you there, and the Bears with the greats like Walter Payton and et al. You've had the opportunity to write some of the greatest books of your 12 about great people that many of them emanated from Chicago. Maybe not the Tiger Woods piece, but others. Tell us about your writing journalism career.
Yeah, it's like I say, in terms of establishing trust and relationships with people over a long period of time, and to have them ask you to cooperate with them, collaborate with them on a book is really flattering to me. The great Gale Sayers, I wrote a book with him about 10, 12 years ago, and we developed a really good, strong relationship. Of course, he passed away a couple of years ago. Just this past weekend, I went to Omaha, Nebraska, where Gale grew up, and they dedicated a statue of him outside of his old high school, Omaha Central High School, and his whole family was there, and I was able to participate in that ceremony. So that's the kind of relationship you hope to develop, beyond the professional relationship that you have with so many of the athletes. And, what I found out is over the years, and you find out too, is that these extraordinary athletes are first and foremost people, and they have their frailties and their mistakes that they make in life, and maturity and all of that. and feelings that they have. So that's one thing that I've learned. The guy may be a great basketball player, baseball player, football player, track athlete, you name it. It comes down to human instincts and feelings that mean the most.
Well, Gallup and Gale, my goodness, but for medical technology and its advances, he still may have gone down as the greatest runner, most exciting runner that I've ever watched. My goodness, look you in the face and go 180 degrees the other way.
18 inches of daylight, that's what he said. That's all I need.
But yeah, exactly right. But way too short of a career. That injury that he had then, now the guys are bouncing back within a year. Just think what he could and would have and should have done. Let's go down memory road just a little bit. The most entertaining athlete that you've ever watched?
Wow. Well, it's hard to skip over the name Michael Jordan in terms of style, substance, excitement, rising to the top in clutch situations, hitting game-winning baskets time after time, playing to the top of his game while he's got the flu or some other affliction. Right at the top of my head, I can't think of a player more exciting. There are other players who fit into different categories in terms of their longevity, and Walter Payton,
Sweetness.
One game his career, and taking the beating that he took physically comes to mind. When you think of determination, you think of people like Ernie Banks, the great Ernie Banks, who never got to play in a postseason. That's play two, yeah. For him to have such a positive attitude about life in general is remarkable. Boy, there's just so many good, great athletes, and there are a lot of good people who are not necessarily the top of the rung athletically on a team that I had a chance to earn, gain relationships with that I appreciate too. The older I get, and I look back at my career, and I say, oh yeah, I got to spar with Muhammad Ali in his boxing ring in 1998, this truth round. And life goes by quickly, right?
Right, it does.
At some point, you have to stop and count the blessings and take account of what you've been able to see.
The one book that you would recommend before we wrap this show up here, the one book that you wrote that you would say everyone must read this book.
Well, the book Playing Through with Tiger and Earl was
yes,
mainly Earl talking, and it was interesting to me because he talks more about life and being a parent, and the challenges that he had as an African American growing up in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
And then having someone aspire and become the greatest golfer that we have known in history. Playing Through, written by the Steel Toe, Fred Mitchell, who's been our very, very special guest today. Fred, thank you so much for showing up on our show, and we'll let you know when we're showing up.
All right.
We'll be right back here next week on Playing for Keeps.